Welcome to Mindboks, a platform for renewed imagination. Today, we're diving into an absolutely incredible set of teachings by GI, founder of the Growth Circle. In this explainer, we're going to explore the hidden architecture of our thoughts. Seriously, if you've ever felt like there's some sort of invisible ceiling placed over your life, well, you're definitely not alone. GI has spent years unpacking the deep psychological and spiritual mechanics of why we stay stuck, and more importantly, how we can finally break free.
So, let's kick things off with the ultimate paradox of human potential. Why do some people reach their massive potential while others just remain entirely stunted? GI frames this up using a pretty brilliant metaphor. I want you to imagine yourself as a seed. Every single human being is planted on this earth with a vast, completely unique potential locked inside them. You're literally meant to grow into a massive tree that bears fruit, solves problems, and serves humanity. But if that's true, why do so many of us feel so incredibly small? Well, the answer actually lies in our environment.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the bonsai factor. You know those beautiful, tiny little trees, right? Well, a bonsai tree doesn't stay small because it's some tiny species of tree. It stays small because it's planted in a tiny pot and continuously, intentionally pruned. Its environment has literally been engineered to mutilate its potential for aesthetic purposes, rather than just letting it reach its full size and productivity. Think about that. Even a seed with the DNA to become a 100-foot giant will just remain a 1-foot novelty if it's trapped in a tiny pot.
And that brings us to a really crucial reality from GI. Environmental conditioning is more powerful than the potential in the seed. Your family, your school, your friends, and your culture, they all act as pots. If the people around you dream small, if they mock big ideas, or if they just constantly speak from a place of limitation, they are actively pruning your potential. Your environment fundamentally shapes your consciousness, no matter how much raw talent you were actually born with.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mind as Real Estate.
Think of your mind like incredibly valuable, fertile soil. Whatever you plant in it, it will absolutely grow. GI uses a super provocative phrase to illustrate this. He says, every conversation leaves you pregnant with an idea. Just let that sink in for a second. We are constantly absorbing seeds from the collective consciousness of our environments. Every word spoken to you, every story you listen to, every image you expose yourself to on social media. These are seeds being planted straight into the real estate of your mind. And here's the kicker. Your mind doesn't judge the seed. It just provides the life force to make it grow.
So how does that actually work? Well, GI maps it out beautifully with this anatomy of belief. It shows exactly how an invisible thought becomes your physical reality. Step 1 is the seed, just an idea or a word spoken to you. But if you leave it unchecked, it takes root and grows into step 2, the tree trunk, which is your belief system. This is basically ideas arranged into a story that shapes your reality. From that trunk grows step 3, the branches, representing your attitude, your basic disposition towards life. And finally, we get to step 4, the fruit. These are your actual physical actions and results. Absolutely nothing comes out of you that wasn't first planted inside of you as a seed.
Which leads us perfectly into section 3. Anatomy of a belief and fear.
Here's a huge takeaway from GI. Fear is information-based. We aren't inherently born with fear. Instead, it's a shift in our consciousness caused by consuming new, alarming information. He points to the story of Adam and Eve to show how, originally, they were naked and felt absolutely no shame. It was only after they ingested new information from a conversation that their perspective completely shifted. They felt vulnerable, and suddenly they were afraid. Pretty much every fear you hold on to today was induced by an alarming piece of information that shifted your consciousness.
Because of this shift, GI gives us a pretty stark warning. To fear is to hide, and to hide is to lie. When this information-induced fear gets into our minds, our immediate, knee-jerk instinct is to withdraw. We hide our true selves, we deflect the blame, and ultimately, we end up lying about our true capabilities. We basically construct a completely false version of ourselves just to survive the perceived threat that our own beliefs created.
But it's not just fear we have to worry about. There are actual glitches in our human operating system that trick us into false beliefs. We call these cognitive biases. First up is confirmation bias, which is where we literally only seek out information that confirms the limiting beliefs we already have. Then there's the clustering illusion. That's when our brains invent patterns of limitation out of completely random events just to try and make sense of the world. And of course, the herd instinct, where we blindly adopt the limiting beliefs of our social circle just so we fit in.
And we can't forget one of the most common biases out there, the sunk cost fallacy. This is that false hope that endurance automatically guarantees a return. It's the exact trap that keeps people stuck in toxic relationships or dead-end projects simply because of the time, the emotion, or the money they've already spent. Your brain spins you a story saying you can't possibly walk away now. And because of that, you end up watering a dead plant in your mental garden while completely missing out on fresh, new opportunities.
All right, time for Section 4, retelling your story. This is where we learn to fix it. First things first, change your environment. Change your cloud. I want you to think of your physical environment as shared cloud storage for dominant thoughts. If you're hanging out in a room full of pessimists, you are unknowingly going to download pessimistic thoughts. It's just human nature. So to break these limiting beliefs, you often have to radically change your physical surroundings. Change where you shop, change the media you consume, and most importantly, change the networks and people you hang around. You've got to get yourself out of the bonsai pot.
Once you've changed your environment, you have to actively retell your story. You literally have to swap out those old limiting beliefs for empowering ones. For example, instead of walking around claiming, "I don't have time," you need to intentionally reprogram that thought into, "I make time for what I want." Every single time you repeat this new story, you're planting a brand new seed in your mental real estate.
Here's another really common one GI points out. That classic limiting herd mentality belief of, all the good ones are taken. Nope. We have to actively replace that narrative with, I attract what I believe I deserve. By consistently retelling these better stories, you actually change the trunk of your belief system. That shifts the branches of your attitude, which inevitably transforms the physical fruits of your actions and your results. It's all connected.
Ultimately, it comes down to this massive truth bomb from GI. The programming you received was not your fault, but the reprogramming of your life is entirely your responsibility. Look, you didn't choose the soil you were planted in as a kid. You didn't choose the early seeds planted by your family or your culture. But right now, as an adult, you are the sole architect of your own mind. Pulling those weeds and planting new seeds is entirely on your shoulders.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Take a hard look at your attitudes right now. Look at the current fruits of your life. What story are you currently telling yourself? And is it finally time to rewrite it? Remember, your mind is your most valuable real estate. It is time to start planting with intention.
If you are ready to take full responsibility for your mind's real estate, we welcome people to join the Growth Circle through Conquering Degrees by following our Instagram handle @allgrowthcircle and link in bio. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Mindboks, a platform for renewed imagination, and here's to finally growing into the absolute massive potential you were meant for.